The Galactic Senate orbited a dying red star, a monument to order forged from fear. Its chamber was a hollow sphere kilometers wide, the walls studded with countless floating platforms, each bearing the envoys of distant civilizations. Light shimmered across the void, reflecting from scales, shells, and metallic carapaces of species older than humanity's history itself. At the apex of the sphere hung the obsidian dais of the Valar Dominion. Its presence dwarfed all others, not by size but by the shadow of its power. High Chancellor Valeron leaned forward on his throne, his translucent exoskeleton glowing faintly with inner light. His limbs curled like knives, his voice amplified by the chamber's resonance fields. "Delegates," he proclaimed, "balance must be preserved. Humanity's expansion endangers stability. Their colonies, Arion, Carthus, and Solara, will be surrendered. This is not conquest. This is necessary order." The words reverberated through the chamber. Whispers rose from every platform, ripples of unease spreading outward. Some nodded in silent agreement, others looked down, unwilling to meet human eyes. No one dared to openly challenge the Dominion. No one but one. On a modest platform near the chamber's edge stood the delegation of Earth. No banners hung above them, no ornate crest signaled ancient prestige. Their place was bare, functional, new, like the people it represented. At its center sat Ambassador Elias Cade. He remained seated as the Chancellor's decree ended, hands folded calmly before him. His dark eyes studied the alien ruler with quiet precision. He was not a soldier, yet he bore himself as one who had seen battle, measured, steady, unflinching. At his side, Adlira leaned closer, her voice hushed. "They expect us to bend. They'll take silence as consent." Cade's mouth curved faintly, not in amusement but recognition. "Then they're listening for the wrong answer." He rose. The platform adjusted, grav field shifting to spotlight him. A hush spread through the chamber. Even the overlapping murmurs of alien translators dimmed as thousands turned their gaze toward the solitary human. "High Chancellor Valeron," Cade began, his tone measured, deliberate. "You speak of balance, but demand theft. You dress conquest in the language of order, yet all here can see the truth. You seek dominion, not stability." The Chancellor tilted his head, mandibles clicking softly. His voice, deep and resonant, carried disdain. "Ambassador Cade, Earth is a child among stars. You do not comprehend the scales at which we maintain peace. Be wise. Relinquish what you cannot defend. Keep your homeworld. All else is a gift of our mercy." Cade's gaze swept the chamber. He met the eyes, if they could be called eyes, of delegates across the void. Some shifted uncomfortably, others stared back coldly, but most looked away. He raised his voice, firm but unhurried. "Mercy does not wear chains. Our colonies are sovereign. They will not be given away, not by demand, not by threat." The chamber erupted. Translators scrambled to keep pace with the flood of voices. Chittering exclamations mixed with guttural cries and metallic tones. Outrage boiled from Dominion loyalists. A few, the smallest and most often silenced, tapped appendages or flicked signals of approval, too faint to carry weight, but there nonetheless. Valeron leaned forward, his voice slicing through the noise. "Bold words. Yet empty. Your fleets are dust compared to ours. Your colonies fragile outposts scattered on borrowed ground. We could scour them before your kind drew a second breath." Cade's reply came sharp, precise. "And if you do, the galaxy will see you unmasked. They will know the Dominion fears even the youngest of races." A ripple of unease swept the chamber. To call the Dominion afraid was audacious. To say it here, in front of every envoy, was dangerous. The Chancellor's limbs flexed, agitation bleeding into his poise. His next words carried an edge of threat sharpened by centuries of enforcement. "Defiance is fleeting, Ambassador. Fear is eternal. Do not mistake one for the other." Cade stood taller. His voice did not rise, but its clarity pierced the chamber's vastness. "Fear crumbles. Defiance endures." The words struck like a blade. The uproar of the chamber faltered, replaced by a silence taut with tension. Delegates leaned forward, as if unwilling to miss the next strike. Lyra's fingers tightened around the railing. She whispered urgently, though her words vanished under the stillness. "Careful, Elias!" But Cade had already chosen his ground. He did not yield an inch. The Chancellor's mandibles spread, his voice booming across the sphere. "Then let this chamber hear the truth. Should humanity persist, the Dominion will scour Earth until its oceans boil, until not a whisper of your kind remains. This I vow." Gasps erupted across the platforms. It was one thing to threaten. It was another to speak of annihilation in the Senate itself. For countless species, this chamber had been a sanctuary where diplomacy reigned, where open extermination was never voiced. Now that illusion lay shattered. Cade felt the weight of thousands of eyes. The future of his people balanced on his next words. He inhaled once, steadying himself, and let the silence stretch until every gaze held fast upon him. Then, with calm precision, he spoke. "Then let the galaxy witness, humanity will not surrender." The chamber fractured into chaos. Voices collided, signals flared, translators stuttered. Some shouted condemnation, others disbelief, a few, very few, cheered. The Senate dissolved into uproar, but through it all, Cade stood unwavering, hands clasped behind his back, as if he had spoken nothing more than a fact. The session adjourned in disorder, the Chancellor withdrawing with a glare that promised consequences. Platforms retracted into shadowed alcoves, leaving the sphere to dim silence once more. In the corridors beyond, the human delegation walked in silence until Lyra finally broke. "Do you understand what you've done? He will not let this pass. They will come for us." Cade's pace did not falter. "He was always coming. Today, the galaxy saw we will not kneel." Her voice cracked with urgency. "We can't stand against their fleets. Logic says we're doomed." He stopped, turned to face her. His voice was quiet, but his eyes carried the force of iron. "History was not written by those who counted odds. Remember that." For a moment, she said nothing, caught between fear and awe. Then they walked on, their footsteps echoing in the hollow corridor. Behind them, the Senate still boiled with whispers. Ahead, silence waited like a blade yet to fall. And Elias Cade walked into it without fear. The human embassy aboard the orbital station was little more than steel and glass pressed against the void. Compared to the marble halls and crystalline chambers of older powers, it looked temporary, almost fragile. Yet inside, tension was heavier than any architecture could bear. Ambassador Elias Cade stood at the center of the strategy chamber. Around him, holographic projections mapped the frontier, human colonies glowing faintly, red markers spreading where Dominion patrols massed. Each flicker represented lives, futures balanced on the edge of annihilation. "They'll strike soon," Commander Juno Marek said, voice hard with the certainty of a soldier. His uniform bore the marks of long campaigns, creases worn not by ceremony, but by use. "The Chancellor won't let your defiance pass as theater. He'll make an example." Cade studied the map, hands clasped behind his back. "Then the question isn't if they come, but where." Juno pointed to Solara, a lush colony at the rim. "It's exposed. If I were them, I'd burn it first. A demonstration. One strike to break morale." Lyra interjected, her tone sharp with frustration. "We don't have the fleets to protect every world. Half the colonies rely on converted freighters as defense. If Solara falls, panic will spread faster than any Dominion cruiser." Silence pressed against the walls. Every person in the room understood the scale of their disadvantage. Numbers favored the Dominion. Experience favored the Dominion. By every measure, humanity's stand looked futile. Cade's gaze never left the map. "Then we don't match them where they're strongest. We make them fight where they're weakest." Juno frowned. "You're suggesting guerrilla tactics? Against an empire that's crushed uprisings for centuries?" Cade turned, his eyes sharp. "Not uprisings. Wars of attrition. They've ruled by fear, not loyalty. Fear cracks under pressure. If we bleed them, if we force them to overextend, Allies will rise where none dared before. The words hung in the air, bold as the defiance spoken in the Senate. Lyra's voice dropped to a near whisper. You're betting on sympathy? These powers hid in silence while the Chancellor threatened to wipe us out. Cade stepped closer to the projection, fingers brushing the glowing outline of the Dominion's frontier. They hid because they believed no one would resist. Now they've seen resistance. That seed doesn't vanish. It grows. For a moment, no one spoke. The idea was fragile, dangerous, but it carried a spark no data could dismiss. Finally, Juno exhaled. If we commit to this, we need coordination. Fleets to harass supply lines. Colonists ready for sieges. Unity, Ambassador. And right now, humanity is scattered. Cade met his gaze. Then we unite them. Hours later, Cade walked the narrow corridor of the embassy. Beyond the viewport, the Senate station spun silently against the dying star. Shadows from alien ships drifted across the glass, massive silhouettes dwarfing the modest human craft docked nearby. Lyra caught up to him, her steps brisk, her expression tight. Elias, you're pushing us toward a war we can't win. He paused, watching the movement of vessels outside. No one ever wins against inevitability, Lyra. They win against arrogance. The Chancellor believes we'll fold because every species before us has. That belief is his weakness. She crossed her arms, frustration mingling with fear. What if you're wrong? He turned to her, his voice quiet but steady. Then we die free. And history remembers that when the Dominion demanded submission, humanity refused. Her breath caught at the conviction in his tone. She wanted to argue, to drag him back to pragmatism, but the fire in his eyes silenced her. For all her doubts, she couldn't shake the feeling that he might be right. The first blow fell sooner than expected. 3 days later, reports flooded in, Dominion warships emerging near Solara. Patrols overwhelmed in minutes. Civilian vessels scattered, some destroyed before warnings reached the embassy. In the strategy chamber, alarms cast red light across the walls. Juno's voice thundered over the noise. They're moving fast. No hesitation. Standard Dominion doctrine, shock and fire. Cade's jaw tightened. Civilian evacuation? Already underway, but their cruisers are hunting escape routes. Without intervention, most won't make it. Lyra slammed a hand on the console. We can't intervene. We have 2 destroyers near Solara, nothing more. Sending them is suicide. Juno's reply cut like steel. If we do nothing, the Dominion proves its point, that resistance means annihilation. We need to strike back, even if it's symbolic. Cade's eyes moved over the map. He knew the cost. Every life lost would weigh on him. Yet hesitation would cost far more. Send the destroyers, he ordered. Not to win. To save as many as they can, and to show Solara that Earth stands with them. Lyra's voice cracked. You're condemning them. No, Cade said, steady and unyielding. I'm giving them a chance to choose courage over fear. News spread like wildfire. Across human space, transmissions carried Solara's plight, Dominion fleets burning across the skies, but human destroyers diving headlong into impossible odds to shield fleeing civilians. The battles were brutal, uneven, but every second bought lives. In the embassy, they watched silent feeds of the conflict. Ships flaring into nothing, voices breaking over comms, flames streaking across Solara's horizon. Juno's hands gripped the railing until his knuckles whitened. They're holding longer than I thought. Lyra couldn't watch. She turned away, tears brimming. And when they fall? Cade stood unmoving, gaze fixed on the projections. His voice was quiet, but every syllable carried iron. Then the galaxy will see the price of defiance. And they'll know we paid it willingly. When the final human ship fell, silence consumed the chamber. No one spoke. Only the fading afterglow of explosions marked the end. At last, Lyra broke it, her voice hoarse. You've made your point, Elias. But at what cost? Cade turned from the display, his expression grim yet unbroken. At the cost of silence. Never again will the Dominion claim unchallenged rule. Humanity has spoken, and the stars heard it. Juno stepped forward, his tone softer than before. So what now? Cade's eyes returned to the vast map, colonies flickering like fragile lights in the dark. Now, he said, we prepare for the storm. And we make sure every ember of resistance burns brighter than the last. The chamber dimmed, but in his voice there was no retreat. Only resolve, the kind that reshapes history. The Senate chamber was a cathedral of silence. Alien delegates, once animated with debates, now sat in rigid stillness. The massacre at Solara had cast a shadow too heavy for words. Smoke and ruin hung in the minds of all present. At the center, Ambassador Elias Cade stood at the tribunal dais. The Dominion's envoys glared down from their crystalline balconies, cloaked in authority, their crimson banners unfurled like blades. Chancellor Veyron himself was absent, but his voice echoed in the chamber through a projected visage, tall, regal, and sharp as obsidian. You have tested our patience, human, Veyron declared, his tone as cold as the void. Your defiance has cost your colonies dearly. Let all witness, Solara lies in ruins because of your insolence. Withdraw now, surrender unconditionally, and perhaps fragments of your people will survive. Whispers rippled among the delegates. Some turned away, unwilling to look at Cade. Others leaned forward, curious to see if humanity's representative would break at last. Cade did not break. His hands rested firmly on the podium. His voice was steady, clear, carrying through the chamber like a challenge. Solara burns, he said. And yet, even in fire they stood. Children were evacuated under Dominion guns. Families fought with nothing but courage, while your warships unleashed devastation. You believe this proves your strength. It proves your fear. The hall stiffened. A murmur of disbelief rose, cut off quickly by Veyron's furious retort. Fear? You dare accuse us of fear? Yes, Cade said, unflinching. Only the fearful destroy what they cannot control. Only the desperate crush the innocent to maintain power. You fear the idea that humanity, fragile, outnumbered, untested, would not bow. And your fear will devour you. Gasps scattered through the chamber. Some delegates leaned toward their neighbors, exchanging hushed words. For the first time in centuries, someone had defied the Chancellor so openly, so plainly, in the heart of the Senate. The projection of Veyron flared crimson, light shuddering with his anger. Your words are nothing. Your kind will be ash before this year ends. Cade let the threat linger. He drew in a breath, then raised his hand to the chamber. The projection behind him shifted, live transmissions, smuggled through encrypted channels, playing for all to see. Footage of Solara filled the hall. Not the destruction alone, but the bravery. A human destroyer interposing itself between fleeing transports and a Dominion cruiser, shields collapsing in fire but buying time for hundreds to escape. Colonists on the ground guiding strangers into shelters, carrying wounded across burning streets. And above all, voices over comms, ragged, desperate, yet resolute. We hold until the last transport clears. Tell Earth, we did not run. Remember us. The chamber froze. The silence this time was not apathy, but wait. No one could deny what they saw, not victims, but defiance in its rawest form. Cade's voice cut through the stillness. You see cowards? I see a people who refused extinction. You call it defiance. I call it survival. And I promise this, Solara will not be remembered as a colony that fell. It will be remembered as the spark that lit a war you cannot contain. The Dominion projection pulsed with fury. You threaten the Empire? No, Cade said, his tone calm, almost somber. I declare humanity's decision. We will not submit. Not to you. Not to anyone. If war is what you wanted, then war is what you will have. The words landed like detonations. Delegates erupted, some in alarm, others in awe. A few banged their claws, tendrils, or metallic limbs against desks in tacit approval. Seeds of unrest stirred where once there had been silence. The Chancellor's image flickered, destabilized by interference, or perhaps by rage. Before it vanished, his final words seared across the chamber. "Then humanity will burn." The projection dissolved. The Dominion envoys stormed out, their guards bristling. Cade stood motionless, letting the uproar swirl. Juno Marek approached from the side, his face lined with grim pride. "You've just declared open war in front of the entire Senate." "Not war," Cade replied. "Truth. The Dominion started this war long ago. Today, humanity answered." Lyra joined them, pale but resolute. "And now every world that watched knows. Some will call us mad. Others may finally believe." Cade's gaze swept the chamber, noting eyes that lingered on him with new calculation. Hope, doubt, even admiration. The fracture had begun. That night, the embassy was quiet, yet outside, ships still drifted like predators in the void. Cade walked the observation deck, his reflection stretched against the stars. The enormity of what he had done pressed against him, millions at risk, worlds vulnerable, and an empire's wrath aimed squarely at humanity. Juno joined him, silent at first. The soldier's posture carried both readiness and exhaustion. "You realize," he said finally, "they'll hit harder now. Solara was only the beginning. They'll send fleets to every border world. We won't hold them." Cade nodded. "Not in open battle. Not yet." "Then how?" He turned, eyes catching the dim glow of Earth's insignia on his collar. "We endure. We fight where they least expect. We show every world watching that the Dominion can be resisted. That they bleed. And we make sure that when the Empire looks into the dark, they see humanity staring back." Juno studied him, then allowed a rare smile, thin, sharp. "For the first time in years, I think they might." Lyra entered, carrying a data slate. "Ambassador. We've intercepted transmissions. Not all condemn us. Some delegates are calling Solara's defense an act of honor. They're questioning the Chancellor's brutality." Cade accepted the slate, scanning the reports. The names were small, unknown species, minor voices in a chorus dominated by fear. Yet their words carried weight, a beginning. He set the slate aside. "Then the spark has caught." Later, alone, Cade allowed the weight to settle. He thought of Solara's skies burning, of voices cut off mid-breath, of families who would never know peace again. His chest tightened with grief, but beneath it burned something steadier. Resolve. Humanity was fragile, untested, underestimated. But fragility was not weakness. It was the will to stand, knowing the odds, and fight anyway. That was something no empire could extinguish. Cade looked to the stars, the infinite canvas of history yet unwritten. His voice, low and certain, carried only for himself. "They wanted a war. Very well. Let them have one."